Good morning, everyone. Here we are again. Hi, Chimyo. Chimyo, would you like to do the opening sutra or shall I? Okay. An unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Having it to see and listen to, remember and accept, I vow to taste the truth of the Tathagata's teaching. Next, we'll have a brief statement about Dharma.
Yes, good morning. In Buddhism, when practitioners share their understanding of the teachings and practice, it is offered freely as a practice of dana paramita. Dana is a Pali word that means generosity or to give freely, and this practice is done without expectation of getting something in return. This is the spirit of speaking about the Dharma. Other ways to practice dana are to offer support to those who share the teachings, to support places of spiritual practice, and to give without judgment or expectation when opportunities arise. Those who share the teachings at Great Tree do so on a dana basis. Please support their practice by giving what you can. Chimyo, what's the best way to offer you dana this morning? Send it to Great Tree or your name. Oh, you're muted.
I forget, sorry. Old lady on Zoom. I have a PayPal account that's through my, with my email address, and that's fine. Or you can send it to Great Tree, however is most convenient for it.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Well, this morning we have the honor of having the Reverend Chimyo Senmon Atkinson giving a talk on Shushogi this morning. Chimyo was ordained by Reverend Teijo Munnich in 2007 and received Dharma Transmission in 2015. She received her monastic training at Great Tree and completed sotoshu international training periods, Ango, in Japan in 2010 and 2011. She completed additional training periods at the Aichi Senmon Nisodo in Nagoya in 2012 and Ryumonji Monastery in Iowa in 2014. Welcome.
Thank you. Please excuse me, I'm feeling a little awkward here with all this built up, screens and all. Let me see. Right. This morning, I sent Randall the title Shushogi. And I'm kind of going to talk around that. I'm going to read a part of it and talk around it. Shushogi is something that you will find. It's not a sutra, but it's sort of a listing of Dogen's philosophical ideas that was put together in the Meiji period. And you'll find it when you come to Great Tree. We have these sotoshu service books that list the sutras and the chants that we use. And you'll find it in the back of this in English. It's a chant that's, and forgive me, but I've only heard it used one time, and that was in Japan, and that was in Japanese, and I wasn't quite sure what we were doing. But it's something that is used as part of our liturgy in certain places, not so much in the United States. As I said, it's kind of a summarizing of Dogen's ideas and from the Shobogenzo gathered from the Shobo Genzo and other writings of his. And it was put together in the Meiji period by a layperson, and I wrote his name down, Aichi. I'm sorry, I'm gonna say it wrong, but Aichi Senmon, who died in 1918. So it's a very recent document. It was pulled together, and he was a scholar, but it also got looked at by some sotoshu folks. And apparently they thought it was a document good enough to use, in particular for the teaching of lay people. As I said, it summarizes things. It's written in 5 parts, and they call it chapters, 5 short sort of parts of the essay that are, they talk about the, well, it's, how do I say it? They talk about the precepts, they talk about the concept of repentance. They talk about bodhisattva practice. They talk about generosity and gratitude. It doesn't mention very much about Zazen. And this is some of the criticism that, well, at least in the West, that we have about this document that I've read about, because it doesn't talk about Zazen. But it does talk about how we move in the world. I don't think it's forgetting, because if we remember the Fukan Zazengi, which is the document by Dogen that we read here at Great Tree at the end of every night of Sesshin, is the document that Dogen wrote to teach Zazen, to talk about Zazen, and relay it to both his monastics and to lay people. In fact, I think it was really written in that spirit. If you go back and look at some of the literature that talks about Dogen's writings, Fukan Zazengi was not for the monks necessarily, it was for all people. It's instruction on Zazen for all people. So there's nothing left out, really, because there is direction given by Dogen to Zazen. This document here, this very kind of new document, is making sure that the other parts of that are, it's not other parts. Okay, let me say this. Zazen is the center of Soto Zen practice. Okay, we think of it in that way. Soto Zen practice comes through shikantaza, just sitting. But in the larger part of that, Dogen also teaches, and the Buddha, also says that Zazen, meditation, is in everything. We separate things like Zazen off the cushion. There's no such thing. The purpose of our doing this very intense shikantaza practice is to be able to incorporate it into our bodies and minds in a way that the state of Zazen, and this is not the words, these are not the words for it, but I'm really trying to come to some words for this for myself. Zazen is more a state than an activity. the zazen we experience on the cushion, or that we come to on the cushion, is meant to inundate, to encompass all of our lives, all of our activities, all of our thought, all of our effort, you know, in this relative world, in our dealings with all beings, animate, inanimate. It's in the Tenzo Kyokun, is all about Zazen and that mindfulness, the three minds that we should bring: magnanimity, the compassion, all of those things are Zazen. You know, it's not even the fruits of Zazen. That is the state of Zazen. That is the state of the Bodhisattva, of the Buddha, that we are reaching for in this practice. So I kind of disagree with the idea that this document ignores Zazen, and that it is not implying in some way to lay people or whoever these words are directed to, that Zazen is not a part of this. It is implying that it is all of a part, you know, all of it. Having said all that confusing stuff just now, I would like to go to some parts of the Shoshogi. I'm not going to read this whole document. The translation that I chose, simply because the translation in here, this is a very stilted sort of English translation. It's not easy to read. It doesn't come out of your mouth very easily, and it's hard to read. And they use words. We use words. Oh my God. I found this is through Shasta Abbey. And I'm not saying that the words, you know, in this particular, that are used in this particular translation are better. A lot of our language, when we translate from a different culture, is kind of misses the mark, or it's loaded with other types of things that may not be appropriate, but this is the easiest to read. The Shoshogi, as I said, is written in 5 parts. And the first part is the reason for doing this, the reason for training in Zen ideas, or in Zazen and all of these things, the reason we're doing this, you know. And it begins with impermanence, because impermanence is what this is, you know. This is why we are trying to deal with the impermanence, with the fleeting time that we are on this earth, and to use our time as bodhisattvas rather than waste it in delusion. And that's what this is pointing to. It starts with the sentence, well, it doesn't start with a sentence, but within the first part it says, impermanence offers no permanent succor. On what weeds by the roadside will the dew of our life fall? You know, the coming and going, you know. It reminds us that our behavior and our movement in the world, it can be the cause of suffering, or it can be the cause of benevolence and joy, and reminds us of that. And when one line it has here, it is impossible to escape from the karmic consequence if we do evil, and read that, do unbeneficial things, on the assumption that by not recognizing it, by not repenting, by not recognizing and holding ourselves accountable and accepting our flaws and our misunderstandings and our misdeeds and our lack of awareness when it comes to working and living in the world. Just because we don't acknowledge it doesn't mean that it's not working on us and destroying our chances of finding peace and enlightenment, or whatever you want to call it. So that's why the concept of repentance is important. Just to say a little bit about that, some of you have taken, or all of you maybe, have taken Jukai. And the speaking of the repentance vows, all my ancient twisted karma, and all that is a very important part of Jukai and of being a Buddhist, recognizing that what we do in the world, why we do it, it can be a cause of suffering, or it can alleviate suffering. And recognizing that we all make those delusionary sort of actions in the world. And taking on that understanding, taking on that mindfulness that that this is our nature, and that we can change, and that we can stop causing suffering by looking at ourselves deeply and recognizing this flawed, delusional, greedy individual. So that's part of repentance. And it doesn't mean, again, it doesn't mean feeling bad about oneself or paying back or whatever it is. It means accepting and going forward with the intention of doing good in the world, regardless of what our past is about. So the part I wanted to read of this, there's a whole part that goes through the precepts. It's in this document, it's called Receiving the Precepts, and it goes through the precepts of taking refuge and the 3 pure precepts and the 10 bodhis, the 10, what do you call it? What do they call it here? The 10 precepts is what they're calling it here. But not to steal, not to kill, those precepts. Forgive me if I lose my words. And it goes through that, and then it goes through the awakening of the mind of the Bodhisattva, which is what the portion I'd like to read to you today. It's a little bit long, but it's not too bad. Awakening to the mind of the Bodhisattva. When one awakens to the true wisdom, it means that one is willing to save all living things before one has actually saved oneself. Whether a being is a layman, priest, god, or man, enjoying the pleasure or suffering pain, he should awaken this desire as quickly as possible. However humble a person may be, it is if this desire has been awakened, she is already the teacher of all mankind. A little girl of 7 may be the teacher of the 4 classes of Buddhists and the mother of true compassion to all living things. One of the greatest teachings of Buddhism is its insistence upon the complete equality of the sexes. This is before 1918 in this document. official sotoshu. Don't let them tell you as it's there, okay? However much one may drift in the six worlds and the four existences, even they become a means for realizing the desire for Buddhahood once it has been awakened. However much time we may have wasted up to now, there is still time to awaken this desire. Although our own merit for Buddhahood may be full ripe, it is our bounden duty to use all this merit for the purpose of enlightening every living thing. At all times, there have been those who would put their own Buddhahood second to the necessity of working for the good of all living things. The four wisdoms, charity, tenderness, benevolence, and sympathy, are the means we have of helping others and represent the Bodhisattva's aspirations. Charity is the opposite of covetousness. We make offerings, although we ourselves get nothing whatsoever. There is no need to be concerned about how small the gift may be, so long as it brings true results. For even if it is only a single phrase or verse of teaching, it may be a seed to bring forth good fruit both now and hereafter. Similarly, the offering of only one coin or a blade of grass can cause the arising of good, for the teaching itself is the true treasure, and the true treasure is the very teaching. We must never desire any reward, and we must always share everything we have with others. It is an act of charity to build a ferry or a bridge, and all forms of industry or charity if they benefit others. To behold all things with the eye of compassion and to speak kindly to them is the meaning of tenderness. If one would understand tenderness, one must speak to others whilst thinking that one loves all living things as if they were one's own children. By praising those who exhibit virtue and feeling sorry for those who do not, our enemies become our friends, and they who are our friends have their friendship strengthened. This is all through the power of tenderness. Whenever one speaks kindly to another, his face brightens and his heart is warmed. If a kind word be spoken in his absence, the impression will be a deep one. Tenderness can have a revolutionary impact upon the mind of man. If one creates wise ways of helping beings, whether they be in high places or lowly stations, one exhibits benevolence. No reward was sought by those who rescued the helpless tortoise and the sick sparrow, these acts being utterly benevolent. The stupid believe that they will lose something if they give help to others, but this is completely untrue, for benevolence helps everyone, including oneself, being a law of the universe. If one can identify oneself with that which is not oneself, one can understand the true meaning of sympathy. Take, for example, the fact that the Buddha appeared in the human world in the form of a human being. Sympathy does not distinguish between oneself and others. There are times when the self is infinite and times when this is true of others. Sympathy is as the sea, in that it never refuses water from whatever source it may come. All waters may gather and form only one sea. O you seekers of enlightenment, meditate deeply upon these teachings and do not make light of them. Give respect and reverence to their merit, which brings blessings to all living things. Help all beings to cross over to the other shore. And that's part of, that's the fourth part of the 5 parts of Shushogi. I think I read this part and, I really came to Shushogi because I was looking for some stuff to say about Jukai, and it kind of popped up when I was doing that research. And, there are parts of it that talk about Jukai, that really talk about the precepts and things like that. But this life that we're trying to create here, or that we're trying to live here, in this time, in this place, in these bodies, the reason why we are practicing with Zazen and trying to bring Zazen into our lives is so that we can manifest this bodhisattva path, this bodhisattva within ourselves that's here to alleviate the suffering of all beings. There's a little pushback on this because it says that we are here for the benefit of others before ourselves. And in a sense, you know, that is kind of not so true. We kind of forget that we are here also to receive the loving kindness of others. And that this exchange or this sharing of this bodhisattva energy applies to us too. It's the ego that says that if I give of myself, you know, there's less of me. It's the ego that says if somebody gives to me, then I am weak and I'm not, you know, I'm somehow less worthy, or that I'm not worthy of anything at all. The other flip side of the ego that lets us not give and receive as we should. Giving and receiving is essential in this practice. But the three minds are what shape that giving and receiving. If giving and receiving is shaped by delusion, by our delusion of this permanent self, or this self above this other beings, these other beings, then that is the cause of suffering. Giving and receiving freely. It's in the chant that we say at Oryoki. It's in almost everything that we chant in some way. Of giving and receiving, of being a part of this great ocean that doesn't discriminate and holds all beings and, you know, shares its true nature. But really, you know, I don't, like I said, I don't remember when this is chanted. I think it's kind of a shame. I'm sure there's some sanghas in the West who use it and come to it. If not on a regular basis, at least at some point. It's a simplified, you know, sort of version, like I said, summary of Dogen. But there's some parts of it that are really relevant that we really need to remember. And yes, shikantaza is the basis of that. But shikantaza is the zazen, you know, we have to remember that shikantaza is the practice. It's the zazen that we carry within, that forms, that helps to form the bodhisattva that walks this way. I feel like I read for a long time, but there's one part of it that I want to read and I guess close on so that I'm not talking forever. and so that you all get to have a say. At the very end of the Shushogi, in part 5, it ends this way. And it's talking about time. Time flies quicker than an arrow, and life passes with greater transience than dew. The life of this one day, today, is absolutely vital life. Your body is deeply significant. Both your life and your body deserve love and respect, for it is by their agency that truth is practiced and the Buddha's power exhibited. The seed of all Buddhist activity and of all Buddhahood is the true practice of perceptual truth. All Buddhas are within the one Buddha, Shakyamuni, and all the Buddhas of past, present, and future become Shakyamuni Buddha when they reach Buddhahood. This Buddha nature is itself the Buddha, and should you awaken to a complete understanding thereof, your gratitude to the Buddhas will know no bounds. So we are all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and we have the same responsibility as those Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and we have the same capacity as those Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. You know, this is part of the faith of doing this practice. That being said, you know, we should, you know, with gratitude and love, you know, towards all beings for all that is being done for us in this world, whether we recognize it or are aware of it or not. And for our own capacity to do the same for others without worry, without worrying that we are losing something or without trying to gain something. You know, that's a real freedom of this practice. That is the freedom from suffering. That is hard to grasp sometimes, but I think we can. So I would encourage you, you know, this is like I said, this is a kind of summary of of Dogen's practice. But maybe look at it once in a while, because we can't all sit and read the whole freaking Shobo Genzo from tail one into the tail end or the back and front, you know. I mean, we could, you know. I think we all have enough time to, you know, pick that up. But as I said, this is directed at lay people. And it's not, and let me say one more thing. Lay practice is extremely important. In my mind, it's becoming more, it's more important than this monastic practice. You know, in the West, we have this sort of, at times, pretend monastic practice. Well, we want to do everything. We want to be a monastic, but we want our cake and eat it too. Not necessary. Lay practice is just as viable and just as important and more important, because there are not going to be that many monks out here in the world. There just aren't. We have to live in this relative existence. We have to deal with the conditions of our time and place, whatever that is. Children are born, and parents have to be taken care of, and work has to be done, and all of the things can be as much zazen as wearing robes and sitting in a zendo. And if we who are in this position as priest can't recognize that and can't help you, I don't know what we're here for. But you know, it's not centered around us. It's a whole world of beings out there who need to know this information, who need to be given this gift of Dharma through Dogen, through, whatever means we have to put the Dharma out there so that people can be aware and move in that way. So there's many ways of doing that aren't just my way or some other way. And so if something like Shoshogi helps to spread that, all for it. So I'm going to stop there and allow for some discussion here. Hear what you all have to say, what you think. And thank you very much for listening.
You said that came from Shasta Abbey?
Well, this
That
particular, this particular translation, there are lots of translations of this. Like I said, there's one here in the sotoshu chant book, and some are more readable than others. This particular one came from Shasta Abbey. The only thing in the language in it, they use a lot of stuff of good and evil, and those kind of loaded words maybe that don't quite fit this, the real concepts beneath them. But yeah, that came from Shasta Abbey, G.U. Kennett's people.
Thank you for reminding me that when we give, we don't have less. That yeah, I guess that's it. That when we give, we don't have less. I would think that sometimes we even have more when we give. But thank you for reminding me.
I would just like to make a statement. Chimyo, you said that we could all read the Shobo Genzo from beginning to end too, if we had time. But, I wouldn't understand it. We need people like you and Teijo and etc. to break it down and make it more digestible so we can kind of get it better. So
yeah,
thank you.
but you're making an assumption that I understand anything. Yeah, Dogen is a bear that everybody wrestles with, and there are people that come to it from all kinds of angles, from academic angles and literary angles, and there's poetry in it and all kinds of stuff. Teijo once told me, because I would complain about it all the time. I don't understand this. He keeps going back and forth. It sounds like he's going in circles. All my complaints about Dogen. And she said, don't read it to understand it. Just read it. And what one finds with a lot of things, as we grow and as people, as we develop in our lives, as we have more experiences, you pick something up at the age of 22 and it says one thing. You pick it up at the age of 52 and it's like, it says something totally different to you. And I think that's what Dogen is about, in my terms. Like I said, I always start stuff and say, I am not a scholar of this. I did not go back and look at the Chinese and pick it apart the way Shohaku Okumura does. And if you're into something like that, Okumura is great at that. and people love his work for that reason. But you have your own eyes, you know. There'll be like anything. There'll be stuff that you think you get, and stuff that hits you, and it hits you hard, and you feel like it's right. You're right there with him. And there's stuff, you know, like I said, you go back to it later and you realize whatever you interpreted it to be is totally the opposite. And it's an experience of that. So I don't, you know, discourage anybody from picking up the Shobo Genzo if you have the time, because there's so many books to it. And so many, how many, they keep adding stuff to it. You know, and he also has the Ehe Koroku and the Shobo Genzo, the Zui Monkey, and tons of Dogen stuff that you can dive into. But just dive, you know. Don't try to understand, you know, because it's just words.
And it's all impermanent anyway.
Mm-hmm. Just like all my little brain cells that keep falling out, you know, I don't know. So, you know, I encourage you to read, you know, whatever you find your heart reaching for. You know, there's more than Dogen, of course. There's the whole collection of sutras out there. So I always encourage people to look at it. You know, I always wonder, how do you know you're a Buddhist? You know, how do you find out what the real tenets of Buddhism are, without, first of all, reading the ancestors like Dogen and everyone else? But at the same time, the Buddha said not to rely on these things. Dogen says not to rely on these things. You have to find it in yourself as well. And these books and sutras are all out there just to show you that other people have had this experience and how they have, you know, dealt with, you know, the practice of the Dharma in their lives, just a guide, you know. So think of it in that way, hold it in that way, you know, and it can be helpful and encouraging. So thank you.
I really appreciate too, Chimyo, what you said about how we're also here to receive. And I think I forget that part, or I block it out sometimes. And I think about like how the giving doesn't deplete us, and what Lorna said, it actually can give us more. And I think about that kind of reciprocal relationship of we're always giving and receiving. And yeah, sometimes I think I get afraid of giving too much because I forget that I'm always receiving as well, and that just how plainly you put it, that we're here to receive, was really profound for me. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a very hard lesson for some folks like myself to learn. You know, I think it was, who is this that told me this? I think it was Sister Peace, and y'all should know Sister Peace. She's been around Great Tree quite a bit. And we were talking about donations and things like that, and how difficult, and I have a difficulty, you know, because you think of it as charity and all that. But really, and this is, you know, Thich Nhat Hanh is very good at explaining this, so, you know, you might want to look at that, at some of his writings. to receive is to also give the opportunity for others to practice the Dharma. That's what dana is, you know, it was part of your explanation. Dana is not, you know, paying somebody. Dana is not receiving a service like you're going to a store. Dana comes from whatever arises in one's heart, in whatever situation. It's an opportunity to practice letting go. It's a lot of things. It's an opportunity to express gratitude, not necessarily just to the person or the circumstance in front of you, but to everything, you know. And what you give is not lost. It's still out there, you know. Think of, you know, we think of wealth, you know, as being put aside, you know, to just accumulate and accumulate, you know. But there's a purpose for that too, you know. You have some savings and your sister gets sick, you know. That money has no, or whatever it is that you decide to give, whether it's money or time, has no, what do you call it? What do they call it in accounting? It's not set aside for anything in specific. It's set aside for your life, you know.
There's no expiration date.
No, there's no expiration date, and there's no, if your sister is sick, that's what that money is for, you know. If the person in front of you is hungry, that's what that money is for, you know. I'm just saying money, but it's not just money, it's also time, it's also even just a little bit of energy placed in that direction, you know. It's not all ours. You know, Shishogi talked about that ocean that we're in. So to let go of something, and all of these things are impermanent things. They don't stay the same. They don't mean the same. They're not valued the same from one minute to the next, from 1 year to the next, whatever, you know. It's part of our existence to give and receive. So when somebody gives to you, you're giving that opportunity for that to happen in their lives, in their practice, in the world, period. You know? So I don't know if those words make sense, but maybe you know what I'm trying to say.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Mm. Mm. So I guess y'all notice I'm sitting here at Great Tree, which is absolutely weird. After 2 whole years, you know, to be here. It's not weird. It's actually very at home. And one thing I'd like to say to you all that I'm very, very glad to see, you know, how much help and how much, you know, you all have done to help keep everything going. Keep Great Tree alive and take care of Teijo and the temple and all. It just makes me so happy to see that happening. And you all taking care of each other with these Zoom zazen and all of that, you know. And that's real Sangha. That's really, really the greatness of the practice, the great part of the practice. So I really want to thank you all for all of this. It's wonderful. The gardens and the temple, everything looks wonderful, and it gave me an opportunity to kind of let go. I had to, squeeze myself out of here, because I come back and I see how controlling my mind was at the time when I was here. And to see people doing things in different ways that make absolute sense, so that, it just shows me. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Would like to say thank you too for me being able to follow and be in this meeting from Switzerland.
It's so good to see you, Renee.
We've been a few times in Great Tree, 4 or 5 times when we lived in South Carolina.
Yeah.
2014 to 17.
No, it's so good to see you, and you're so welcome to be here anytime. And I hope you can come back, and
It's
visit.
poor luck because there's a time difference, and most of the time if the meeting is in the afternoon, it's too late for me, but now it was in the morning and I just could jump in.
Great. What time is it where you are?
It's almost 5 o'clock here in the afternoon.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you could join us.
Thank you.
You.
And we have these every Saturday morning. And if you miss them or any of the other things that we hold on Zoom, if you go to Great Tree's website, you can see YouTube. They have a YouTube channel, and you can see other talks that we've had on Saturday mornings too. So if you can't get to something sometime and you want to, it will be on YouTube. So.
Okay, well, we have what, 5-10 minutes? What's the same? Yeah, a little over 5 minutes. Does anybody have any other thing that they would like to say? And there's Stella.
I was gonna ask if Stella's calming down and how things are going.
I have no idea whether she's calming down or not. She's been very good here with me. Teijo's away doing the Southern Dharma retreat right now. And so I'm dog sitting, and Miss Stella has been great. She's kind of been calm. She's got a little, chiwi, yip, sessions every once in a while, but she's been very sweet. She's a sweetheart.
Yes, and also next weekend is the session, which you are leading, so that will be on Zoom too.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to join at any time. The schedule and everything is on Great Tree's website too.
Yeah, just go to the events page on our website. At the top, it says special events, and all of the things that are not daily or, or you have to register for or anything like that is under special events. So hopefully you can find that if you're interested. Okay. Well, shall we close? Do you want to?
Okay. Do you want to start the closing sutra? May the merit, and I will. Or shall I?
Are you not the
I guess a doan at least. I will. I'll start it, and you can be the one that we hear echo it. All right, and everybody else can say it as an echo. All right.
Okay.
Okay. May the merit of this practice penetrate. May the merit of this penetrate into each thing. Where? That is not the right one, is it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is.
Start with that. Yeah.
Penetrate.
Echo. Go ahead.
What?
You're doing the food echo. You're right.
Into each thing in all places, so that we and every sentient being together may realize the Buddha way. That's not what we usually do.
Are numberless.
May the benefit of this practice benefit all beings.
Changed it. Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead and do whatever you have on your script. It may have changed since I've been here, so go ahead. I'm passing it to you. Go ahead.
All right. This is the echo one. May the benefit of this practice benefit all beings and bring peace.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here, and have a wonderful weekend. And we'll see you again. Okay. Thanks.
Genjo, can I speak with you?
Yes.
Do you have any time planned for next weekend?
Yes. Yeah, I'll be in person at Great Tree Friday night till Sunday night.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right.
Yeah, and then I won't be able to join after that, the rest of the session. But I'll be there all weekend.
Okay. All righty. Then
Yeah,
I'll
will you be there in person?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
All right, well, see you there.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you for your leadership.